So, why do we need to talk about the vocational pipeline? Take a look at these statistics, showing the distribution of student education tracks from 1990 and 1994. You can see that around a quarter of students are typically enrolled on an educational track which focuses on some type of vocational career. For these students, as well as those who take vocational courses without being on the vocational track, it is paramount that they be maintained and reformed in today's schools. So what is the purpose of vocational prep? These courses are aimed to provide specialized and relevant instruction on a student's field of interests. This instruction will assist students in finding a job in an industry they are training for. Typically, these courses prepare students for jobs that do not require a college education. What do you, as future educators, need to know about vocational prep? First, vocational prep is pivotal in bringing relevance back to education for many students. Because not every student is destined for college, vocational prep provides another accessible and interesting option for students. This training also makes school time more meaningful for many students, as class time is spent specifically focusing on preparing students for their future careers. Secondly, vocational prep offers an educational solution for an economic problem. Today's economy is in desperate need of people who are not only willing to work, but are also sufficiently qualified. Your future students need a global economy to work in, but more importantly, the global economy needs your students to work in it. What historical events have made an impact on the development of vocational prep? Around the turn of the 20th century, vocational prep first started to surface in schools. Boys could choose training for careers in agriculture or carpentry, where girls had the option of taking home economics courses. The Smith-Hughes Act of 1917 was the first legal doctrine to explicitly support incorporation of vocational training into secondary schools. This act authorized federal funding for vocational courses, preparing students for careers that did not require a bachelor's degree. This federal funding provided free public education not just for students looking to enter college, but also for students looking to start work in their careers immediately after graduating. Because federal funding of vocational curriculum in secondary schools is ongoing today, this act serves as a landmark legal doctrine in the establishment of vocational curriculum. Following in 1920 was the Better Schools Amendment, which allowed for increases in local taxation for education. This allowed some schools to increase funding for vocational training. This amendment also alleviated some of the state's burdens to fund education, allowing for increased development of vocational curriculum without the need for more money from the state. In 1949, Gilmer-Aiken laws sought to raise national education standards and balance out inequalities between schools by establishing the Texas Education Agency. Following these laws, the Elementary and Secondary Education Acts of 1965 allowed for federal governments to provide assistance to underfunded school districts. Creating better standards and learning outcomes for financially underprivileged districts and students goes hand in hand with reforming vocational curriculum, as many of the students who attend these schools do not go in order to prepare for college. They attend to graduate and receive a diploma. Adding vocational curriculum to the educational track of these students would allow them to not only graduate with a diploma, but also to graduate with an adequate preparation for the industry or field they seek to work in. What is vocational prep like today? Since its inception, the practice of vocational prep in secondary schools has changed in a number of ways. We see these changes upon evaluating today's vocational prep programs. Vocational prep began in the areas of agriculture, carpentry, and home economics. Today, vocational prep now consists of 16 career clusters, similar to the majors present in higher education. Because we live in an increasingly digital world, technology and computer-based careers are becoming particularly relevant in today's vocational training. However, the digital shift leaves some other fields that require manual labor potentially obsolete in today's economy due to the development of automation. Nowadays, vocational prep often competes with standardized assessments for priority. This can leave students that are on a vocational or technical track with less relevant instructions. Finally, vocational curriculum today may also struggle due to recent decreases in funding since the 2016 presidential election. With federal funding going to many other areas before it reaches education, there is little money left to reserve for the platform and improvement of vocational curriculum in secondary schools. Finally, what should you take away from this video? Overall, vocational prep in secondary schooling is essential for many students, most of whom will not be moving on to college, but straight into their vocational career fields after they graduate. In order to ensure that these students are prepared for an ever-shifting global economy, it is paramount that we maintain and emphasize the importance of vocational training. Excessive focus on standardized testing in K-12 schools does not simply harm students with futures in higher education, it especially harms students enrolled in vocational tracks, as the information tested on these assessments is often unrelated to vocational curriculum and can keep students from graduating. Vocational education needs to be shifted towards a more digital sphere, as fields which require physical or manual labor are progressively becoming more automated. If educators can influence the students on a vocational track to study a field with digital applications, these students will have a more relevant skill set for today's workforce.